Oh, Mrs. Garcia, how do you balance it all? You're a school counselor and new homeowner, a mother of two, and grad student. You're an Ander. At National University, we see the whole you. That's why we're dedicated to your professional growth through faculty mentorships and career support, so you can focus on what matters most. National University, supporting the whole you. Learn more at nu.edu.
This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Sports Betting Network, kicking off hour 2 of Money Moves. Stormy, Buonantony, and Grace Remington with you. Lots more to come this hour. We will have Terrell Furman dive into the 9-game NBA slate. Lots of double-digit spreads to get into, as well as the postseason picture, particularly in the Western Conference. Very interesting how those seeds are going to shake out. So excited for that conversation. We'll have plenty of baseball as well. One game, by the way, already underway. The Reds and Rangers tied at 0, top of the second. One out right now, sitting there. But we've also got a couple games that are going to start, Grace, in about 10-15 minutes or so. The Pirates and Rays, Royals, Brewers, Angels, and Cardinals all going to be in that early window, I believe. Any of those games that caught your eye, by the way?
Yeah, let me get to one that we didn't get to in the first hour of the show. Royals Brewers is actually one of my favorite plays of the day. I bet the under Freddie Peralta under 5.5 strikeouts at plus 125. I have him going under this 58% of the time, which means the under should be priced at minus 140. So quite an edge there. But the deal with Freddie Peralta is he has a nasty slider. The problem is he did not use it in his opening day start. He only threw it twice, but over his career, he's typically thrown it 22% of the time. He throws his fastball 55% of the time. The weighted on base average for that opening day was 471. And to repeat, the average weighted on base average you'd want to see on a pitch is 320. So that was 471. And the expected weighted on base average really wasn't good either. It was 432. Last year, his fastball, it was better, but still worse than league average. It had a 330 weighted on base average and expected weighted on base average. When you see those two numbers match up, that means that's true. That's what it really is. And the Royals are a top 5 team in strikeouts, not just this season to start the year, but that goes back to all of last season as well. A disciplined team at the plate. So I bet the under 5.5 strikeouts for Freddie Peralta.
Okay, the standard numbers in that game, by the way, you've got the Brewers minus 122 favorite there, the Royals plus 102, the run total for the game sitting at 7.5. A game that is not in this early window, it's coming up a little bit later, is the Padres and Dylan Cease taking on the Guardians and Ben Lively. But I don't have a handicap for this game for you today. Padres a big favorite again after they've already won 6 games. I just thought it was interesting that last segment we were talking about the Dodgers and the start that they have had. How about the Padres and the start they've had? They're 6-0, and kudos to Jackson Merrill, who signs a big extension, 9 years, $135 million. Not too shabby of a way to start your season here, Grace.
Yeah, congrats to him, one of the best young players in the league. But the Padres off to this undefeated start. You look at their hitting metrics, they are a top 4 team in terms of strikeout rate, striking out less than 18% of the time. And that's kind of similar to the numbers they had last year as well. In their hitting metrics, they're a top 7 team, which, they have a top heavy lineup, so I think those numbers kind of make sense. And the talent is there on this rotation. Michael King, Dylan Cease, Nick Pivetta, Yu Darvish is on the IL right now. So there was always an upside to this team. The reason why I was down on them to start the year is because the team is in a legal battle over ownership, which could tie up the finances come trade deadline time in the middle of the year. And so that's just why I didn't want to bet them in any futures markets, because, if ownership, if they have a losing record, or just aren't doing well by the time we reach the All-Star break, they might become sellers at the trade deadline. But hey, if they keep winning now, then they might become buyers. Like we just don't know, but they have some really great pieces here that they could sell off, which is why I wanted to hold off on them. But the undefeated start is not surprising to me. It's just a matter of what ownership decides to do later in the season.
I am a Padres fan, having lived there for as long as I did and going to San Diego State for college. My high school prom was actually on the Western Metal building at Petco Park, so I love the Padres. I'm excited for them to have this start, but I just know a lot of people coming into the year were like, I'm just not ready to get hurt again, because San Diego is a team that consistently gets your hopes up, and they do, and you know that they're talented and you know that they're capable, yet they always seem to let you down come postseason in the games that matter most. So let's see if they can keep this alive. Again, big favorite today in that third game against the Guardians. Now, for as much as we're talking about the baseball, and we've got interesting times right now in the NBA and NHL as we're getting closer to the playoffs there, it's still like the NFL finds a way to inject itself and make headlines and be the belle of the ball like it always is. I mean, we're in the Final Four right now, and we're talking about NFL owners meetings in Florida because of some of the things that we have seen coming out, whether it be the Cowboys situation, the talk around in San Francisco, Brock Purdy's contract, and all of these different things. And something that our producer Brian said in the commercial break that I'm curious your opinion, because I very much so agree, is that it seems like this time around, this owners meeting, we're getting some very candid statements from a lot of these big names and higher ups in a lot of these organizations. Like, I didn't anticipate seeing or hearing Jimmy Haslam say it was a swing and a miss on their quarterback situation, although he's not wrong, but it's been very interesting. Or Jerry Jones coming out and saying he doesn't even know Micah Parsons' agent's name. Granted, we're used to sound bites from Jerry Jones of all people, but I think a lot of the commentary that we have seen coming out of here has been a little bit more open and honest than we would normally get in March and April.
Well, the Jimmy Haslam thing, thank God he said it out loud, because I feel like we've all just been gaslit for the last 2 or so years. So we're not crazy. That's good to know. The Jerry Jones thing is, I mean, that was even like egregious for him. Just so disrespectful. You listen to his comments about these big deals. So the Micah Parsons deal would be the second biggest deal he's made behind Dak Prescott. But in all these conversations, he's referencing Deion Sanders and Emmitt Smith. And it's just like, dude, that was 40 years ago. Like, can you please move on? Like, I get it. You're the owner. You can do what you want. But, like, we just don't live in that world anymore. And that's not how business is done. So it's disrespectful, but also, probably good publicity for Micah Parsons' agent. I was about to say, we all know his name now, and I forget his name. It's David, and then something long with that begins with an M.
Mulligan, I believe, is how it's pronounced, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
But I heard it, but I
something like that.
Yes, along those lines.
It's got to be good publicity for him.
He is a well-respected agent in the space too, so it's just kind of funny. And Parsons obviously goes to Twitter and defends him, but it's just interesting because Jerry is kind of this old school guy, and I understand where he's coming from. Is like, we just want to sit down and talk it out, you and me, but that's not how things work in present day. And when you are the owner and general manager and you're in control of everything, and it's your toy that you spend all this money on, you think you can handle it however you want to, but it's just strange to be disrespectful for no reason. And anyways, that's the way.
That's what it
is. That's the way that shook out. Now, we also saw there seemed to be positive feelings in Pittsburgh about Aaron Rodgers. Art Rooney saying all signs are positive so far about that potentially working out. We have also seen relations with the Falcons where they say that they're still good with Kirk Cousins sticking around, but then we have all of the rumors about potentially him going to the Browns after the draft, depending on the way those things shake out. So still some potential movement in the quarterback carousel that we're not 100% sure how that's going to shake out. But then myself as a 49ers fan, and I teased it there a moment ago, are all of the comments about Brock Purdy's contract and basically ownership coming out and saying, yes, this exodus of players that we have had to let go is because we have to pay our quarterback now. And it's fair. That's the reality of the situation. You have gotten away with murder, essentially, with so much talent on your roster because you have had a quarterback that you drafted as Mr. Irrelevant on a rookie contract. You have squeezed all of the juice out of that orange, and now you have to pay the guy. My question as a fan is, what is that figure? And that's kind of the concern if you want to still be able to try to capitalize on the talent that you have there, is what does this look like? Are you paying him $50 to $55 million a year, or is he willing to take a little bit less, which quite frankly, if I'm him, I don't know if I would do that after I've been making peanuts compared to everyone else. And I see the contract that Trevor Lawrence gets. I see the contract that Tua Tagovailoa gets. And I've brought my team to higher ceilings than they have. So I don't know where you sit on it. I just want, as a fan, the 49ers to be a franchise that can continue to build. And when you have to pay a quarterback more often than not, we see the rest of the roster take a step back.
I was ready to ask you, Stormy, how does it feel to finally have a real quarterback on the roster? Because you guys have been getting away with murder, which is why it's so silly that so many Niners fans are complaining. I don't think you're one of the complainers. I don't think, right? If you are, I'm not trying to insult you. But this is just how it works in the NFL. And looking at the cap space now, 49ers now have the 5th most cap space after clearing out all the free agents, $38.5 million, which at this point isn't too much to work with. But I mean, I think Brock Purdy deserves the bag as much as the $55 million that Trevor Lawrence is getting. I mean, like, his agent definitely has a great case for him. He's taken the team to several NFC championship games. Just the start of his career too, being prepared the way he was as the third stringer in a tough spot. I don't know how you look at the market and what the top quarterbacks are being paid and not give him that. I mean, because every year in every position, the market continues to rise. Yeah. And if you wait any longer, like the Cowboys have, like the Bengals have, 49ers might end up having to pay him more. So I think Brock Purdy deserves it all, but when's it going to happen? I don't know.
I think so too, and like they have committed to paying him, and they've made the roster moves that they have in order to do that. I just as a fan am curious ultimately what that figure is going to look like, and it's hard to say he doesn't deserve it because he does. And I understand the argument people try to make because of all of the talent that he's had around him, but wouldn't that be true of any quarterback that's got a lot of talent around him? Like, I don't believe the assertion that he's a bad quarterback that's going to turn into a pumpkin. That's just not reality to me. On that note, I have to take a break. I'll be right back.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
If you're ready to take your sports betting to the next level, it's time to check out sharpplays.com. Since 2011, they've been building trusted relationships with major sportsbooks and sports insiders worldwide, giving daily updates on what professional sports bettors and betting groups are wagering on, so you're always ahead of the game. Plus, check this out. They just launched a cutting-edge AI betting analyst that provides even more selections and reports. Plus, the best part, you can check out the Sharp Plays free content anytime. Get real-time betting action reports, alerts, and more through email and X directly from the pros. Head over to sharpplays.com today. Start getting access to the best betting insights out there. Sharpplays.com. We're back here on Money Moves, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, alongside Grace Remington. Stormy Buonantony with you. Going to hit on a few different things here, but we had Wes Reynolds on the program earlier, and we got some of his thoughts on these final 4 games. And Grace, I'm genuinely just curious your opinion on it, because I was out of town over the weekend. We weren't sharing the airwaves together. So aside from our Why Not Wednesday and your affinity for Houston, I don't really know your cap on these games. So we've got Florida as a 2.5-point favorite against Auburn. Total ticking down from that 161.5 to, I see DraftKings and a handful of other spots at 159.5 right now. And Duke bet up from the 4.5 to 5.5 against Houston. Lower total there, obviously 136.5 with the defensive capabilities of, quite frankly, both of those teams. But did either one of these games, when you saw what the matchups were going to be, jump out to you as, I really like that side or that number? Anything?
My first thought was this Florida-Auburn game could really go either way because these teams have such similar profiles. It's hard. It's really hard when you're digging into the metrics to find an edge anywhere. But I think each team maybe has one thing or two things that it does a little bit better than the other. The projections have this a 1-point game, so it really is a coin flip. I think when the original total came out at 161, I would have taken the under. 159.5 is really close. I think my play, if we don't get any more movement, will be the Auburn team total under 79.5, because I do like Florida just the slightest bit better. They have very similar rim and three rates, but Florida is a little bit better here. I went back and looked at their metrics dated to February 1st, because since over the course of a season, like, they are literally, you look at them side by side, it's the same team. So I need to make it a little bit more specific and recent. But Florida has been the better shooting team in both 2-point shooting and 3-point shooting. Their effective field goal rate is 3 points higher than Auburn's is, 27th nationally compared to 76. But both of these teams get to the free throw line at a high rate. Both of them are bad at allowing teams to get to the free throw line. Auburn is the better team at protecting the ball. It ranks 25th in turnover rate, while Florida's average. But then Florida is worse at forcing turnovers. It ranks 285th in takeaways, while Auburn is average. So I wonder, I think just because they're so similar, I just have to go with the team that's kind of hotter at the current time, which feels like Florida, even though these tournament games have been so close. But one under trend I wanted to bring up with Auburn is their postseason games in both the SEC tournament and the NCAA tournament are 5-1 to the under. That one over game was against Creighton. It totaled 152 points to go over the 148.5, but the reason it went over is because Creighton scored a meaningless layup with 30 seconds left and then inexplicably fouled Auburn, who made its 2 free throws. So Auburn could very easily be 6-0 to the under in its postseason games, which kind of speaks to the whole defense wins championship things. Teams are a little bit more conservative in the postseason. No one wants to make the mistake first. Yeah. So, yeah, kind of liking Florida more, and the Auburn leads me to the Auburn team total under.
Right, and I think that also leads to why we've seen that movement toward the game total as a whole here, probably the appropriate side. And with this Houston-Duke matchup, like I said, Duke bet out a full point, but that's not huge in a lot of these games, considering some of the movement that we have seen elsewhere. And I think Duke has probably earned that right with the way that they've been so dominant throughout the course of this tournament. But the comment that I made to you in Why Not Wednesday about kind of the close games that Houston has played in, I am curious if you think that there's any potential to that actually being a thing. If Houston's defense is able enough to drag them into the mud, maybe Cooper Flagg isn't having just an awesome all-around day, although he probably will, but let's just, for the sake of argument, say this is a close game with 8 minutes to go, and Houston has had to play Purdue and Gonzaga at the end, Arizona, Texas Tech, Kansas, Baylor. Meanwhile, Duke along the way is just used to dominating, with the exception of the ACC tournament when Cooper Flagg wasn't out there on the court with them. They are winning games at margin night in and night out. Could it be a tougher, more uphill battle for them if they are in a close game late against a team like Houston that's so good defensively?
Yeah, and I think that goes to the experience Kelvin Sampson has had. And John Shire is still a little bit new to this. Of course, he's played and been with Duke during this decades-long championship caliber run. But as a head coach, there's just different duties that come along with your preparation. And Kelvin Sampson has been in 3 Final Fours. So maybe that's where we see this coaching experience. I'm tempted to take Houston plus the points here. I like this line movement, but I am going to wait until Friday, maybe even Saturday, when more casual money comes in, because everyone just loves Duke. They were the most popular team in brackets. I think over 20% of brackets have Duke as their winner. So maybe you just see people pile on, laying the points with Duke, and then we get a better number for Houston. But I think I might do the same thing I did with the other game and take Duke's team total under 70.5 points. Looking at 3 different models here, they all have Duke winning, but they don't have Duke scoring more than 66. And looking at Houston in its recent games, so its totals are 9-3 to the under in its last 12 games. And those unders have come against teams like Iowa State, Texas Tech, Kansas, Baylor, BYU, Arizona, Purdue, holding all those teams under 70 points. And maybe they're not the most prolific offenses, but all those teams definitely have a high scoring upside. So I think maybe the Duke team total under might be my play here.
Yeah, I think totals or team totals might be the the better angle in this one versus the spread. I'm just not sold either way. Like, I could very easily talk myself into both sides of this, which is probably what we expected, having all 1 seeds in the Final Four. Exactly what you were talking about with Florida Auburn as well, right? But statistically, though, you see both of these teams ranking top 10 scoring and field goal defense this season. Duke, meanwhile, 9th in scoring, while Houston tied for 164th, and Duke having a significant height advantage in this game, which I know a lot of people have added to their handicap and liking the Blue Devils in this one. 4 players at 6'9" or taller. Meanwhile, Houston's 243rd compared to Duke being first in Ken Palm's average height. That said, we'll have plenty of time to continue to break down these games. Last couple minutes this segment, I do want to at least share a couple thoughts on the NHL slate that we have coming up today. A handful of teams on the second half of a back-to-back, also fighting for what that playoff seeding is going to look like. Division races, one of which a little interesting here in the Capitals and Hurricanes, because we have seen a lot of line movement in this one. Hurricanes out from -165 to over $2 favorites now. We know that the Alex Ovechkin chase is continuing in tonight's game. 4 goals to go, 8 games left. So technically, numbers-wise, 56% chance of him doing it this year. Y'all know I'm heavily invested, and I think he's going to, but we'll see. But for them, second half of back-to-back against the Canes. If you believe the odds, these two likely to face off in round 2 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And while I would take the Caps in that series, I like the Canes today. I think very much so a rightful favorite with the rest advantage, and just from a motivation standpoint, like trying to have a message sending game. And they have been really good lately since February 27th, 12-3 overall, potentially riding high after a really strong goal scoring performance, put up 6 goals on Sunday against the Islanders. That said, at this price, I just can't get there, and I don't like puck line bets against the Caps because of how well they have played. I think I might end up, and I know we'll do best bets later where I'll get into a little bit more of the NHL slate tonight, but looking at some combo props, and I know we've talked about this with guests in the past, with whether it be Jonathan Davis or Josh Ingles, whomever it is, about kind of comboing players on the same line, and their line, Seth Jarvis, Sebastian Aho, Jackson Blake. I think that there could be some value there in this one. Another game, Panthers and Maple Leafs. This, to me, is the game of the night. First of 2 meetings the next 6 days for these two teams. Both teams with sights set on the top spot in the Atlantic Division. Florida played last night, had a big lead, end up losing in overtime to Montreal. Could not beat that team, by the way, this year. 4 losses to the Montreal Canadiens. They didn't play Sergei Bobrovsky, though, in that game, because you think that you should be able to walk over Montreal, and then you've got the tough game in Toronto. So he's at least rested, usually on the second half of a back-to-back. I would want to fade the team that's playing back-to-back games, but in this case, I think I actually like Florida at the short money line, -112 price in Toronto. I think that they're going to show up. It's a big game for them. The effort is always there in big games, and they're going to have the better netminder. So just some food for thought there. We'll get more NHL and best bets later, but coming up next, we're going to shift gears to the NBA. Terrell Furman is going to join us. We are going to break down the 9-game slate today, as well as some of these playoff races, get his thoughts on how the West might shake out. Don't go anywhere.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
We're heading out to Hardwood as we welcome you back here to Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Grace Remington and Stormy Buonantony with you as we welcome into the show now Terrell Furman on the Progressive Guest Line. You can catch him as a betting analyst over at Betting Pros, the NBA gambling podcast, the Fast Break Bets pod. He is doing it all, crushing it in the NBA and the women's college hoops tournament. So we'll get into a little bit of that in a moment. And always excited, by the way, for the WNBA to get going, because Terrell is our guy there as well. How are you, my friend? How's everything going?
Oh, I'm great. Hoops never stops, man. Whenever one league ends, another one starts. When the women's Final Four ends, they have a month, and then WNBA starts.
Yep.
Like, this is great. This is amazing. Well, not good for those players, but good for me.
Have you been surprised to see, like, all the chalk that we've seen? Like, men's tournament, we've got all 4 1 seeds. Women's tournament, 3 1 seeds and a 2, and the 2 seed is UConn, who's the most prolific women's basketball program in history, led by the best player in the sport right now. Like, that's what we're used to getting, I feel like, on the women's side, but to have it on all men's and women seems like a lot and very unique.
Yeah, definitely on the men's side. I think on the women's side, I mean, it more or less is going to be chalk when you get to the end of it. I think there's a lot more parity in women's basketball from the top of women's basketball to the bottom, and whereas in the men's side, I think things are a lot more closer between the teams, and so you would expect to see something different than one seeds over there on the men's side. But if you think about it, we've only seen this happen twice in the history of the tournament, that, you know, all these one seeds are getting to the final like this. So I think that is just parity, and sometimes you're going to have a chalk year, and that's all it is for the men's side at least. The women's side, it typically goes this way, where you see your South Carolina, your UConn, USC had the Juju injury. That's why they're not, you know, with the game against UConn. UCLA's been really good. Like, you've seen this happen before.
Speaking about close races, we were talking about the NBA race in the West earlier in the show. Lakers, Warriors, Grizzlies, T-Wolves. I mean, you can even throw the Clippers in there, all within 3 games of each other. How do you think that side of things shakes out?
So I think the West is very, very interesting because, honestly, I really only think there's like one team that I feel really, really good about, that I'm saying they're going to win the NBA championship, and that's the Oklahoma City Thunder. Everybody else has a lot of things that I think is really good, but then they also have their flaws. The Lakers are cool. They have their moments. I think Denver has their moments, and then they have situations like last night where without 2 top scorers for the Minnesota Timberwolves, they still weren't able to get it done. And I know they didn't have Jamal Murray or Michael Porter Jr., but that's just a long history of them losing 6 straight games to the Minnesota Timberwolves, who I think are potentially a first-round out. The Houston Rockets have not looked good for the better part of 2 weeks in basketball. Like, everything in the West, I can sit there, pick and choose with every single team except OKC. OKC, whether they're playing the A team, whether they're playing a B team, whether they say, man, we're going to throw the C team out there for you, it doesn't matter. We're still going to go out there and cover the number. They've covered 10 of the last 10 games. Like, I can't point any flaw out to OKC. So while the West is very competitive, to say that, looking at all the teams, I don't see championship material in a lot of these teams.
Yeah, it's definitely the deeper conference, but in terms of top heaviness, talent at the top in both conferences, whether it's Thunder or Celtics, Cavs, it's just one of these things is not like the other when you look down. I will say, though, Lakers, Warriors, if that does end up being the 4-5, ratings explosion, right?
Oh, yeah, amazing. And, I mean, every time you get Steph and LeBron in a series, it's going to be great. But in the first round, I mean, these are 2 teams that I think could both make a run. Like, if I look at, you know, the standings, if you pull the standings back up, I'm not favorable to the Rockets at 2. I think the Rockets could run into a number of teams and get upset, especially in the play-in. Like, if that Rockets go up against that Clippers team, I'm not 100% certain the Rockets are going to make it out of there. I'm not 100% certain they can make it out with the Timberwolves. I give them a better chance with the Timberwolves than the Clippers, but that's not 100%. You look at the Nuggets, and the Nuggets going up against the Grizzlies, and, well, I'll give them that because the Grizzlies have been terrible, but what if the Grizzlies fall into the play-in? Like, they're sitting right there, so the Grizzlies could fall into the play-in. And if that Nuggets team plays that Timberwolves team, from what we saw last night, they cannot beat the Timberwolves. So, like, I think there's so much parity, and it's like, man, if the Lakers and the Warriors could duck each other in that first round, I could see both of them being able to meet up in the second round.
Let's get into your plays for today. And you are looking at the Mavs and Hawks. This has moved the way of Dallas and toward the over. So what's your official play in this one?
So in this game, you have the Hawks, who are on the second leg of a back-to-back. This season, on the second leg of a back-to-back, the Atlanta Hawks are 4-10 to their team total. They have not performed well. They have not been able to put up points. It gets even worse when they're a dog. On the second leg of a back-to-back as a dog, they are actually 2-5 to their team total, and they've gone under 118.5, where their team total is up to now. So the spread is going up, probably because they're expecting the Dallas Mavericks to do a lot of scoring here today. You see that's at 121.5. And I do think they're going to do a lot of scoring. I don't think the Atlanta Hawks are going to do any as well. I actually faded them yesterday. I'm fading them again here today. I think the Hawks are going under their team total 118.5 here, and the Mavericks are going to be able to cruise in this one, in the only game that the Mavericks do not have to win by double digits to be able to cover the spread for the day.
So I'm looking through, all of the spreads for it. We got 9 games, at least on DraftKings right now. 7 of them are double-digit spreads, almost 8 with the Denver Nuggets sitting 9.5 right now.
Oh, they still got to win by 10. That's double digits.
Yeah,
they still got to win by 10.
It's still there. So were there any of those games, though, that did stand out to you, whether you were willing to lay it or thought that it was too many points? Because, I mean, those are the options today. That's the pickings that we have.
Oh, yeah. Beggars can't be choosers, and that's perfectly fine with me. So I'm over here, and I'll take the Sacramento Kings laying 13 here, laying 13.5 against the Wizards. I think the Wizards have been playing really, really bad basketball, and they're a tanking team. And they understand when it gets to the second half, hey, we got to make sure we don't win this game. There's so much tanking, in fact, that Jordan Poole can't consistently get minutes, despite being their best player right now. Put up 35 points the other day in 29 minutes, but before that, he's getting like 20 minutes a game. So they're very, very fluctuating with minutes. They're trying to play the young roster. It's not working out for them. The Sacramento Kings need something, and they need a spark. And I've always said the Sacramento Kings are a 500 ball club. They're 36 and 39 right now. They need a couple of wins and covers to get back to 500. So I like the Kings today. I think they're going to be able to do enough scoring. I actually like the over in that game as well, but I think the Kings can handle the Wizards. And on the other side, a dog that I think will cover the big number is the Utah Jazz, plus 17. I think the Utah Jazz can absolutely cover that. In fact, the Utah Jazz have somehow covered 8 of the last 9 games against the Houston Rockets. I don't understand how exactly they've been able to do that. They've been catching some pretty large numbers in a lot of those games, and they've still been able to give Houston trouble. And it's pretty much because the Jazz will get out early and fast and they'll make the game competitive, and then they'll wait till the second half, much like the Wizards, and kind of let the other team walk away with it. So this time, this is too many points, 17.5 for a Rockets team that always has trouble with this team. I think that they keep it a little bit closer, a little bit more defense. They just played this game less than 10 days ago, I believe. So I like the Jazz to be able to cover the big number.
I'm curious, Terrell, because you've been betting the NBA for quite a while. When we get to this point in the season where there's a clear motivation versus not motivated at all factor, do you find that that is baked into these lines, and do you have to kind of attack these from a different angle?
I think you get to it a little bit later in the season. Maybe it starts around April, beginning of April, but maybe a little bit further, maybe towards the weekend. We start showing that they're actually going to show you, hey, we're baking into these lines that this team has no motivation to play. They might be sitting guys. Like, that's going to happen a little bit later. But as of right now, I think teams are still going out there because some guys are still playing for their jobs. Like, everybody on Utah, some of these guys are going to be grocery baggers by the end of the season. That's just how it's going to be. And you know what? Go out here, have a good game, and try to make sure that guy's not you.
Last couple minutes, let's go back to the women's tournament. Women's Final Four coming up on Friday. UConn laying 8.5 against UCLA, total 135.5. And then Texas and South Carolina, the shorter spread of the 2 games. South Carolina laying 4.5 points, lower total 126.5. Anything that stood out to you fired on in those 2 games?
Yes, I am immediately on the under in the South Carolina and Texas game. I think this is going to be a snail's pace. First off, in the women's tournament, I love backing the conference games in the tournament. It just adds another level of the competitiveness of already having a conference game, a team that you play all the time, and then getting them on the biggest stage of them all, and you're playing in the Final Four in Tampa. And so I think this game is going to go under. Both of these defenses, Texas is really, really known for their defense, not as much their offense. They have a freshman in Booker that's really good, but Dawn Staley has found a way to kind of neutralize her and not let her go off for 20 points in a game, and they've held these games relatively short. This is the 4th time these 2 teams are playing in 1 calendar year. So, yeah, I'm all over of the under here, under 127.5, I believe it's at right now, and I think that this is going to be a very, very slow game.
Okay, just every time that somebody gets close to a layup, like, please brick it. Please, just don't do it for us. We need the slow pace, low scoring game. Terrell, you're awesome as always. Thank you so much for doing this. We appreciate you, buddy.
Always. See you next time.
And I believe Terrell when he gives us any information on the women's game because he has been crushing it for this tournament. Make sure you check out all the work over at bettingpros.com. Follow him at reallyRel_ on X. And, of course, check out the NBA Gambling Podcast as well as the Fast Break Bets Podcast. And remember this, ladies and gentlemen, if you're a VSiN Pro subscriber and you missed any of last segment, you can go check out all of the information he laid out. Get the VSiN Watch app for free. Make sure you download, check out everything that we have on a daily basis. We'll be right back.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
We are wrapping up this Wednesday edition of Money Moves live on VSiN, the sports betting network, Sirius XM, channel 158. She's Grace Remington. I'm Stormy Buonantony. We got 4 games in action right now in MLB. One in the top that we have a rain delay in right as that game was about to start. So Twins, White Sox in a delay, but Rangers leading the Reds right now in the top of the 5th with 1 out, 1-0. Pirates up 1-0 on the Rays in the top of 3. Royals, Brewers tied at 1 in the top of the 3rd, and Angels up 1-0 on the Cardinals in the bottom of the 2nd. 2 runners on though right now for St. Louis. So keep that in mind as we are trucking along here. Very nice, Grace, and I'm glad that this is going to be the new normal for us to be having live action baseball on our screens regularly. I just still wish that we had it on opening day. It was such a bummer that we had to wait till the afternoon. I wanted this all day long, but now this will be a more regular occurrence, which is fun.
You're right. I love day baseball. Like I said earlier, the weather plays a huge impact. It's nice to have your bets going throughout the workday. For us, this is our work, but for people who don't get to talk about sports all day, it's always fun to have some action throughout the day and just, little distractions here and there. I think we're gonna, you and me on this show specifically, I think we're always gonna get some good pitching matchups just because of how the 5 or 6 days shake out. Because Thursday was opening day. We had that show together. So every Wednesday or Thursday, we should get some pretty nice matchups between aces here. So this is going to be a good season.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And that leads us to our best bets of the day presented by G-Bank, the official bank of VSiN. And Grace, you are our baseball gal. So what do you have locked in for some of these games that are still to come here in Major League Baseball?
So we've lost a tiny bit of value on this. I would have liked the Blue Jays. I think they opened around plus 115. The best price I can find now is minus 104 on FanDuel against the Nationals, but I think it should be closer to minus 120. The 2 pitchers you have here are Mackenzie Gore for the Nats, who is good, and his opening day line was his career best. No runs given up on 1 hit, 6 innings pitched, no walks, 13 strikeouts. I don't know how replicable, is that the word? Repeatable.
Replicable,
I'll just say it like that.
Yeah, either way.
Replicable. I don't know if he can repeat something that, quality. What we saw in opening day is he actually dropped the usage on his fastball and then mixed in the cutter and slider more. But the slider is actually his worst pitch by weighted on base average. So I'm interested to see what his mix turns into. But for Toronto, you have Easton Lucas making his first MLB start. We don't know too much about him. The reason why I like the Blue Jays here is because they can be aggressive with the bullpen behind him if they need to pull him early, and then it really becomes a matchup type game. All of the Blue Jays relievers are pretty rested, and then they have an off day tomorrow, so they can really go all out here. And then on defense as well, they have the edge there. They're a top 5 team this season and last season in defensive runs saved and outs above average. So Blue Jays on the money line, up to minus 120. That's where you would kind of lose the edge. But right now, minus 104 on FanDuel.
I'm mad I don't have any baseball yet. I'll probably end up betting on something by the end of the day. I was putting my efforts into hockey more so this morning, which yesterday the hockey bets did go 2-1. So we cashed on the Lightning in regulation and the Islanders team total under 2.5. VGK in regulation didn't come through for us. The Oilers got that win, although because of the way that things shook out elsewhere in other games, the Golden Knights did clinch their spot in the postseason officially. So a win of sorts, just not one that helps my bankroll, unfortunately. As for today, we've got a handful of games on deck. I tried to talk myself into something Carolina Hurricanes related because, like I mentioned a little bit earlier this hour, I do like the matchup for them against a Washington team that's on the second half of a back-to-back with the rest advantage and just kind of a something to prove mentality against Washington, who is the top team in the East right now, very much so in play to win the President's Trophy this year, and a team that they could and likely will play in the second round of the postseason. They've been playing awesome this year. I just don't know, because they've been bet up to such a high price that we're at minus 218 right now for them at home. You could do the regulation play to bring it down, but I think even that's still just a little bit pricey on the 60-minute line, and I don't like puck lines against the Caps. So what I'm going to do is I think I landed on Jackson Blake at even money to have an anytime point in this game. He plays on a great line, top power play as well, but with Sebastian Aho and Seth Jarvis, two guys who are minus 180 and minus 215 for an anytime point, you're getting a guy who plays alongside them at an even money price, very capable. So that's a way that I am leaning there. And then in Panthers, Maple Leafs, Florida has gotten bet up from even money out to minus 112, actually a slight favorite now in this game in Toronto against the Leafs, but I would still feel comfortable with that. I ended up betting minus 110 on Florida today in the bounce back after the unexpected loss to Montreal. They didn't have Sergei Bobrovsky in that game. They will in this one. And again, like another something to prove mentality. They don't want that division at the top of the Atlantic to separate them out. They want to be in that position. So I like Florida there. And then I am tailing our good friend, Jonathan Davis, who's a regular on the program. I think we are trying to secure him for tomorrow's show, TBD. But JD, if you're listening, come join me. Kraken and Canucks going head to head. Jonathan Davis loves the total in this game. It's a low total, sitting at 5.5. Shared this note with me this morning. All 14 meetings between the two historically have seen 6+ goals scored. 12 of the 14 with 7+ goals scored. Seattle also on a 28-1 run to the over, coming off of a loss, they having just fallen in back-to-back games to the Dallas Stars on Saturday and Monday. They've also dropped 5 of their last 6 just in general. Vancouver at home, yes, played a low-scoring game in Winnipeg, but who doesn't against the Jets? Previous 6 games, 7-6 final against the Blue Jackets, 5-2 against the Islanders, 4-3 against New Jersey, 5-3 against the Rangers, 4-3 against St. Louis. You get where I'm going here. They're on a 9-2 run to the over their last 11 games. So rolling with JD there. And then as we kind of round out the G-Bank best bets, did want to remind you, Terrell Furman, who joined us last segment, we were talking some NBA, some women's college hoops. In the women's Final Four, he likes the under 127.5 in South Carolina, Texas. The Kings laying 13.5 today in the NBA, and the Utah Jazz getting a whole hell of a lot of points today, plus 17.5. Any more baseball for you today, Grace? I only saw the Blue Jays in the rundown, but is there anything else you liked?
Yeah, my favorite play of the day was that Freddie Peralta fading his strikeouts prop, and then Blue Jays was second best. But if anybody else needs some other action, some other things I like are the Giants-Astros under 8. They're played in a dome, which always helps pitching. And you have 2 pitchers here in Landon Roop and Framber Valdez with a high ground ball rate and a low home run rate. Landon Roop, another young guy here who's only had 4 career starts, so we don't really know much about him. What benefits him, though, is that he has a top 5 catcher behind the plate in Patrick Bailey, top 5 in defensive runs saved. And then both of these bullpens right now rank in the top 10. A few other strikeout props I liked today. It's always a little bit sweaty to fade aces. Zach Wheeler, his line is set at 8.5 strikeouts after 8 strikeouts in his opening day start. And he's facing the Rockies, which is a very strikeout prone team. However, I have him going under this number 72% of the time. The under 8.5 was actually plus 105 last night, so I had to fire on that just based on price. Right now it's minus 120, but that's still a 17% edge. And then the other one was Sonny Gray over. Okay, so I'm giving you an over now. Over 6.5 strikeouts against the Angels. I have him going over about 54% of the time. The under should be even odds, so that's a little 4% edge. But he's playing the Angels, which are a very high strikeout team. And the interesting thing about Sonny Gray is he is entering his age 35 season. And while some of his stats have gone down or gotten worse, like home runs given up has gotten worse, his walk rate has gone down and his strikeout rate has gone up. So you typically don't see that with the older guys, but I think we can trust him. So I did, because it was even odds to go over, I ended up taking the over 6.5 strikeouts personally. So I'm comfortable giving that out.
Best Bets today presented by GBank, the official bank of VSiN. And for anyone who didn't know, GBank has been upping the ante for new GBank Visa signature card customers up to $750 in bonuses. The marquee one here, though, new customers who spend $1,000 on eligible purchases in 90 days from account opening will get a $250 instant bonus. Apply now at vsin.com/GBank. That's VSIN.com/GBank. Subject to credit approval. Terms and conditions do apply. And just looking at this Pirates-Rays game that we were discussing earlier in the show, just 1-0 right now in the middle of the third. That Paul Skeens prop, how we talked about it being bet up, 7.5 strikeouts, juice to the over. He doesn't have any so far, so I'm sure a lot of people that are invested in the over are sweating in their boots. Hey, a lot of game to go, a lot of time left, and he can sling it when he wants to, so we shall see. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us today. We appreciate it. That's a wrap for this Wednesday edition of Money Moves. Coming up after this, prop points, but don't forget, Make It Rain with Adam Shine. Later on in the day, we got the Follow the Money crew with Mitch and Pauly. A full locked and loaded day, baseball, NBA, NHL. Keep it tuned right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.